Hello, friends. Happy Tuesday. It's time for another episode of Tuesday Live at 5. This is Lena Gersa. I'm an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator from Cambridge, Ontario, Canada. And today I am having so much fun reliving my childhood with the Boho Vibes Suite from the Stampin' Up! 2025-2026 Annual Catalogue. Now, this suite is straight out of the 70s. I grew up I was born in 71, so had my childhood throughout the 1970s. And I got to tell you, the patterns and the color palette from this suite just sends me right back to my childhood. I had clothes in these colors. I had denim skirts embroidered with some of these patterns. So I'm having so much fun, just sort of feeling a little nostalgic playing with this suite. So I'm going to show you 3 projects today. We're going to make them together. I have a few others that I'm going to share with you at the end. I'm going to show you all the products that are in the suite, and we're just going to have a little bit of retro fun. So if you're joining me today, give me a hello. Let me know where you're watching from and whether you are joining me on Facebook or YouTube. It's always helpful to know who's watching where. And while you are doing that, I am going to show you some products. So let me just flip to my desk here. There we are. Okay, so here is the Boho Vibes Suite. It's a fairly small suite. It features a bundle, some DSP, and some embellishments, but it is so much fun. So our bundle has a really bold stamp set with large, bold font sentiments and some sort of patterns. Not really a ton of imagery, but more textural type images in this one. And then these dies I absolutely adore. I'm having so much fun playing with them. In fact, if you can only get one thing from the suite, I would totally get the dies. These rainbow elements are just so much fun to play with. But that is the bundle, the Sunshine Vibes bundle. And then we have this fun DSP. So again, color palette totally from the disco era. So our colors, we've got Cajun Craze, Petal Pink, a little bit of Lost Lagoon and Cloud Cover, some Secret Sea and Navy, some Mossy Meadow and Daffodil Delight. So we've got lots of fun textural patterns in this paper, some rainbows. This reminds me of the Ontario Science Centre. For those of you that are of a vintage that remember going on school trips to the Science Centre, that's what these rainbows remind me of. A little bit of rickrack. I love this sort of fun and funky rainbow, some texture, more rainbows, again, straight out of the Ontario Science Centre, and then another rainbow pattern. And then on the back, we've got a little bit more subdued, so not quite as colorful. We've got some Secret Sea. This is like a sunburst image. We've got this little check image. That's in a Mossy Meadow. We've got Petal Pink, a little bit of Cloud Cover, stripe, another Petal Pink sort of dash pattern, and then this fun sort of, I don't know, tufted pattern almost. So really great paper. Now, the cool thing about this paper is there are 8 different patterns, or 8 pages, double-sided, and you get 6 of each. So unlike our regular 6x6 where you get 4 of each pattern, there are 4 fewer patterns, but you get 2 extra sheets. So you get 6 sheets of each, which is nice if you're, a demonstrator who is planning for classes or you're trying to mass produce. Okay, so that's the paper. And then of course we have these cute little embellishments. These are simply muted palette dots. They're fairly high. They're not exactly low profile. You'll see these on a couple of projects. So I'll let you see them up close in a few minutes, but there you go. That is the suite. I told you it was a little bitty suite, but it's got a lot of punch. So let me just see who's joining here today. We've got Laura. Hi, Laura. Oh, hi, Gail. You made it home. Long time no see. Hi, Judy. Hi, Sharon. Welcome. Hi, Joyce. Judy, you're able to catch me live. That makes me happy. Excellent. Hi, Donna and Julie and Sharon. Lauren, welcome. Hi, Alexina. Your parcel is on the way, Alexina, with your Christmas and July goodies and your BOGO item. So watch for it. I don't think it'll be there till Monday. Tracking is showing Monday, but it is on its way. All right, so here we go. This is the first project. I wanted to do something a little bit more masculine with this suite because it does kind of have a bit of a feminine vibe, but I wanted to show you some ideas for how to create more masculine cards with the products in this suite. So we're going to put this one together. So I'm going to start with a piece of basic beige cardstock, and I'm going to bring in ink of the same shade And then this little sort of textural stamp just kind of got little dots. So we're going to take our ink and we're just going to kind of stamp around the outer edge of our cardstock. I'm not worried about trying to create any kind of pattern. It's actually better if it's a little bit random. You don't want it to try to look like it's sort of matchy-matchy. You want it to be a little bit sort of willy-nilly. So here we go, all the way around. There we go. And then I'm going to come in with a blending brush and just do a little bit of ink blending to soften that down a little bit. I wanted the pattern to sort of recede into the background and not sort of take away from our focal image. So I'm just kind of blending with ink of the same shade, so still basic beige, all the way around the edge, right over those stamped images. And what that does is it blurs the image a little bit. That's intentional. I want it to kind of fade into the background a little bit. So we're just going to kind of come all the way around. This would be faster if I was using a large brush, but I already had basic beige on this one, so I just figured I'd use the small one. It just takes a little longer. The larger brushes are great for covering a lot of real estate in a hurry. Smaller ones are great for doing smaller elements and detail work if you're trying to hit a certain part of an element. But the large ones are great for covering backgrounds. All right, there we go. So do you see how that just sort of pulls everything together and kind of mutes that pattern a little bit in the background? Okay, let's keep going here. All right, next I had to bring in a little bit of Woven Textures DSP because this, again, this sort of wicker, again, reminds me of my childhood. So this whole thing, I'm just sort of channeling the 70s today. So this piece is 2 by 4 inches. And then I have a piece of gold foil specialty paper that is 2 1/8 by 4. So we're going to layer that. We're going to have just a narrow itty bitty border there. I might actually trim a smidge off the edge of this because I feel like this is a little bit more than 2. And I'm not going to see as much of the gold as I want to. So we'll just take a little bit off of that. And that way we're going to see, yeah, that's better. See a little bit more of the gold. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and add a bit of seal. I like using seal when I am adhering to a less porous surface like foil. It just takes less time to set up. You can use liquid glue, but you do have to give it a little bit more dry time because it doesn't set quite as quickly. All right, so we're going to go ahead and layer that now onto our background. I'm going to do it a little bit below center, okay? I don't want to put it right across the middle. I'm going to do it a bit below. So again, a little bit of seal. And this is going to go on about, no, let's do it an inch up from the bottom. I was going to do 3/4, and then I realized that was probably going to be too low. Okay, so there we go. Next, I have an arch rather that I've cut using the Everyday Arches dies, and I have used. I think this is maybe the middle size. I think, and again, I've cut some of it from some of the Boho Vibes DSP. All right, Laura. I like yes, I do like the blending brushes better than sponges, Laura. I still use daubers. I rarely use sponges anymore. I just find the blending brushes apply much more evenly, and I just get a much better blend than I do with sponges. But that's a very good question. Sponges served their purpose when we didn't have blending brushes, but now that we do, I will take the blending brushes any day. All right, so there we go. We are going to layer that on a piece of Pecan Pie cardstock. This is 4 1/8 by 5 3/8. So we're just going to layer that onto there like that. And use a bit of liquid glue for this one. There we go. And then that is going to get mounted onto a Mossy Meadow card base. It's 4 1/4 by 11 inches, scored at 5 1/2. What stamp did I use? It's actually one of the stamps, Julie, from the stamp set. It's this little guy here. It's that. Okay, or are you talking about the crisscross on here? The crisscross on here is actually the pattern paper. It's the DSP. I'm not sure which crisscross you're referring to. You can maybe type in the comments there and let me know. All right, so here we go. We're going to go ahead and add our card front to the card base. I just knocked my water over, but thankfully it had a lid. So there's only a couple of drips, and it's not on anything that is earth-shatteringly urgent. This is why we always use covered cups when we have water on our stamp table. There we go. All right, now we are going to stamp our sentiment. So this is a 2 1/8 inch circle. And I'm going to stamp my Sending Good Vibes in Pecan Pie ink. And I'm not going to center this. I'm going to stamp it a little bit to the right and down from center, because I want to make sure I leave space for my leaves. Okay, so I don't want to do it. Oh, that might be a little low. Oh, well, that's all right. We'll work with it. Talking and stamping at the same time are never a good thing for me. All right, we're going to go ahead and layer that stamp circle onto a 2 1/4 inch gold foil circle. This one I cut using my Stylish Shapes dies. The gold circle was actually a 2 1/4 inch circle punch. I still love my circle punches, much as I love dies. Punches are the bomb when you're creating on the fly and mass producing. They are great. Okay, so I have these little sort of vine die cuts. These are from the die set. And I'm going to apply just a smidge of seal. And I'm going to adhere one, kind of coming up and around my sentiment. I might angle this a little bit more than I did on my sample, just because I've got that extra white space there. And then this one is going to kind of come down and around. So again, a little bit of seal. And down and around like that. And then these two are the leaf stamp. So the leaf stamp from the Sunshine Vibes stamp set. I stamped it in Mossy Meadow on old olive cardstock and then just fussy cut it out. Okay. So here I'm going to come around and I'm going to let my sort of vine peek through once I get this glued down, but this is going to get adhered. I might bring that over a little bit just so that it fills in some of that white space that I left. So I'm going to apply just a little bit of liquid glue here to my leaf and my stem. And let that come across like that. I do want to make sure I let my vines peek through as well. Maybe we'll have that coming up and over. There we go. And then this one, I'm actually going to trim some of the stem off, and it's going to kind of come down. Actually, I might actually bring that. Nope, we'll do it like that. So I'm going to trim a little bit of the stem. And this is going to get adhered just kind of right like that. So again, a little bit of glue on the stem and one leaf. And we'll pop that on. Just like that. Just going to trim the end of that stem so it's a bit cleaner. And then that is going to get popped up on the front of our card. Now I do need to take care to make sure that this guy does not extend too far down, right? In fact, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to pop this off if I can. No, maybe not. That's all right. I was going to actually trim this a little shorter because I feel like that's, let's see if we can do that. We're going to try. I feel like that's a little long. Yep, glue hadn't set. Look at that. I can pull it off. Woohoo! We're going to trim off this extra leaf and make this a little bit shorter so that it fits better onto our card front. So again, add a little bit more glue because I've lost all that glue I had. And we'll tuck that on there just like that. There, we can still see our sentiment. Yeah, that works. Okay. Now we're going to add a couple dimensionals and pop this on. So here we go. So we'll go ahead and add that right about there. You could certainly center it if that is something that your eye prefers. I quite like things being offset. I'm going to take my linen thread now and tie a double bow. So when you get your linen thread off the roll, do you see how curly it is? That's quite hard to work with. So you just take your bone folder and you basically iron it with your thumb. you run the twine through between your thumb and your bone folder. And yeah, little thumb ironing. Wouldn't it be nice if everything was that easy to iron? All right, so I'm just doing a double thickness of linen thread here to tie my bow. And we'll trim our tails. Get this out of the way. And then that is going to go on just where all of our stems meet there with the glue dots. Just press that into place like that. And then the last little touch are some of these metallic textured dots. I love these little embellishments. And I'm just going to add 3, kind of following the shape of the circle here. I'm going to put them up a little bit higher than I did on my sample, just to kind of offset the fact that it's not quite balanced the same way this one is. There we go. Can you see those? There's our finished card. Now on the inside of this one, I just did a little bit more ink blending in Old Olive and then stamped some more of the leaves in Mossy Meadow. And there we go. There's a masculine card for you with this fun little bundle. A little bit of a retro vibe. We'll set this aside and we'll bring in our second project. I think this may be one of my favorite projects I've made in quite some time. I don't know. We'll see. Here we go. This is a baby card. So starting with our little rainbow and then a big welcome to your sweet girl. Isn't that just the cutest? I need to find somebody who has a baby girl so I can send this card. So here we go. Let me show you how to put this one together. We're going to start by constructing our rainbow. So my favorite thing about this bundle are all the little elements that are used to create our rainbows. So let me just bring in the dies for a moment to show you. So there are different ways that you can use these dies. This cuts the blank. Okay, so that's what I use to cut this white blank. This one you can use in conjunction with this to cut a frame that creates a peek through. I'll show you a sample with that later. Or you can use it to cut individual rainbow stripes to build your own rainbow. Okay, and then we have all of these little dies here to make to create the different elements to create this sort of patchwork rainbow. Okay, all right, so I've got my white blank here. And then I've die cut the elements in Petal Pink and Crumb Cake. So we are going to just start building our rainbow. So I have to tell you, if you get these dies, you absolutely need to use adhesive sheets on all these little rainbow elements. The very first one I made with all these little elements, I did not put adhesive sheets on. And oh my goodness, there's not enough real estate to put liquid glue anywhere. It was a struggle to find a place to stick things down. Now I'm just going to weed out some of these little negative bits that are stuck in here. Come here, you. That one doesn't want to come out. We'll just hide it underneath. That one's coming out. No problemo. All right, that's going to bug me. Come here. They're not normally this problematic. There we go. All right, so there is our first little arch. And then next we're going to add these little vines. So they're going to kind of tuck in next. So these ones are in Crumb Cake. And again, adhesive sheets are your friend with these. I cannot tell you how much of a struggle it is to put glue on these little tiny bits. So stick with the adhesive sheets. Hi, Claire. Oh, I'm glad you like this one. Yeah, I love this card. I need to find someone with a baby girl. I got to get some of my former students busy on baby making so I can send them a baby card. Next, we have Petal Pink once again. Now, this one you could do with liquid glue, but it has the little sort of texture cuts in it. And if you get too heavy-handed with the liquid glue, you will end up with the infamous ooze coming through those little cuts. And then the little rickrack. This is my favorite. I love, love, love this. I loved rickrack when I was a kid. I had like an entire skirt that was different colors of rickrack. It was denim with layers and layers of rows and rows, I guess, of rickrack. My mom made most of my clothes growing up, and she knew I loved rickrack. So everything had rickrack on it. And then this one, this is the absolute worst for trying to glue with liquid glue. Just saying. There's like, it's like Swiss cheese. There is no like, no solid real estate to stick down with liquid glue. It is a struggle. And then again, we're just going to weed out these little negative bits here. I find it easier to do this once it's stuck down than when it's still in the die, especially with adhesive sheets on the back, because these little bits, the backing comes off and they stick to everything. Your fingers, your die brush, your mat. So it's easier to just kind of pop these out once you've got it stuck down. At least that's my opinion. Some of you may disagree. And that's okay. All right, there we go. Isn't that the cutest little rainbow? I love it. All right. Now that's the hard part. The rest is just assembly. So I have a 3x4 inch piece of basic white cardstock that I've embossed using the eyelet embossing folder. So we're going to go ahead and layer that onto a crumb cake mat that is 3 1/8 by 4 1/8. So we're going to layer that up just like that. And then our rainbow is going to get popped up, centered on that little embossed panel. Broke my thumbnail last night, so it's a bit of a struggle. I'm working with a handicap here. Peeling off my backings. And then somewhere I have a little crumb cake heart. That's going to go right in the center of our rainbow. Now this has adhesive sheets on it too, because I cut it from the piece that I was cutting the other elements. I don't actually need adhesive sheets on here because I'm going to use a mini dimensional, or part of a mini dimensional, probably a half mini. Let's just cut one of these guys in half. We're going to pop that on there. And then that is going to just kind of live underneath our rainbow. Now this is a smaller heart. I just realized it's the wrong size, but it's okay. The small one still works. All right. Now for our sentiment, this little 1/2 inch piece of crumb cake cardstock, I've heat embossed in white, Hello Darling. I thought that was a cute little sentiment for a baby, or for anyone, to be honest. And I'm just going to take and cut my ends at an angle. So I cut one end. I'm going to take this little bit that I cut off and slide it down and use it as a guide to get the same angle on the other end. Okay, that makes it easy to get your angles the same. And then we're going to add some new trim. Oh my goodness, how much do I love this trim. So this is Petal Pink braided trim. Look at how fun this is. I don't know if it'll focus. Let me stop moving. There we go. It's not the best focus, but it is braided, and it is the softest little shade of petal pink. It's a little bit lighter than the cardstock, but it totally works. So what I'm going to do is add some seal to the back of my sentiment label here. I'm going to lay my trim down on my desk, and then I'm just going to lay my label over the trim, but I want to make sure that I see some of it hanging out the bottom, and I want to have a little bit on the ends. Okay, just like that. Then I'm going to add some mini dimensionals at the top of the label where the trim is not. That's going to allow this to lie flat because the trim is quite bulky. So if you were to put this, try and glue this down flat, it wouldn't sit very nicely. Then I'm going to take and fray the ends of my trim here. Again, right in macrame, right? Anybody else's mom do macrame? My mom was obsessed with it. We have forever had stuff hanging around that was a half-finished project. She was crazy for macrame. And actually, I quite like macrame. I think I might need to take it up in my retirement. All right, so we're going to go ahead and layer this right across our rainbow here. Just like that. Okay, isn't that cute? I love that. All right, to finish this, it's really, really easy. I have a 5.5 by 8.5 thick basic white card base. It's scored at 4 1/4. So we'll fold that in half along our score line. And I'm going to add a piece of the Boho Vibes DSP. This is that sort of petal pink polka dot pattern. That is going to get glued across the middle of our piece. So this is 2.5. Yes, 2.5 by 5.25. Okay. So a little bit of glue. I'll pop this on. It's not going to be flush on the edges because it's only 5.25, right? My card base is 5.5. I intentionally left that little bit of a white border on the ends. And then that is going to get glued to our card front. Just like that. Hopefully straight. And then the last little touch is to add one of these muted tones adhesive back dots. These are petal pink, so you can see there's two sizes, a larger one and a smaller one, but they do have a fairly high profile. Can you see that? So if you are mailing, you're going to probably want to put a protective layer between your card front and the envelope. I usually just use the backing pieces from DSP or whatever scrap I have just to protect that so it doesn't catch. Okay, but there you go. There's our finished card. You like that one? Isn't it sweet? Again, on the inside, I use sentiments from Cutest Onesie to finish the inside. Okay, so there we go. That's number 2. Hi, Doris. Welcome. Thank you for sharing. Okay, my last card. See, this is a close second for which one I like better. So here we go. This is a fun little fun fold. It's a, I don't know what you call these, double pillar bridge fold or something like that. It's got some highfalutin name. I just think it's a cute fun fold. It does fold flat. It ends up 4.25 by 5.5 for mailing. But I love the way it sort of pops up and gives a nice, it really highlights that fun sort of patchwork rainbow. Okay, so let me show you how to do this one. As I always do, I have a template. So this just gives me my measurements for that. So basically the base of the card. These measurements are also in the video description, so don't worry about trying to write these down or take a screenshot. Essentially 4.25 by 10.25 is our card base size. So it's a little bit shorter than a regular 4.25 by 11. So we're cutting off a 3/4 of an inch off one end. And then what you do, I just realized I think I'm missing some score lines on here. Yes, I am. I didn't do all the score lines. Good thing. I've got my trimmer here. Oh no, I did. They're just really, really light. They're there. Yep. Okay, never mind. So this is cloud cover cardstock, as I said, 4.25 by 10.25. And then with the long side at the top, you're going to score at 1/2 inch, 1.25, 2, and 2 3/4. And then you rotate it and do the same thing. 1/2 inch, 1.25, 2, and 2 3/4. Okay. So that gives us all of the pieces to make these little boxes on each end. All right. So let's get to this. So I'm going to start with my innermost score line. I'm going to fold inwards. So all of our folds are going to fold inwards. So there's 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. Okay, you can see how that's going to make one box. And then we're going to do the same thing on the other end. So the innermost one to start. There's 1. This is where my score lines were not very deep. It's hard to see them. 2, 3, and 4, and that's going to give me my second pillar. So you can see how that's going to form my card base. Okay. All right. Oh, hi, Maya from the Netherlands. Welcome. Thank you for joining me tonight. And Jean, you made it. Well, I hope I can change your mind. You missed the first 2 cards, so you have to go back and catch the replay. And I'd be interested to see what you think. Okay, so to put this together, because we want to make sure these little boxes end up square, right? We want to make sure they're nice and square so that when we assemble our card, it's not wonky. So what we're going to do is put some glue on this little 1/2 inch tab here. I'm going to show you and then I'll do it. And then I'm going to fold this over so I have 2 panels showing. Okay, and secure that. I'm going to flip it around, do the same thing on the other side. So a little bit of glue on this little 1/2-inch panel or tab, fold it over. So I have 2 segments showing, and I'm going to burnish that really, really well. Okay, and then when I stand it up, I have my box. The other thing I'm going to do is burnish it the other way. Okay, so that it doesn't matter which way it gets squished, it's always going to be a square box. Okay, I'm going to do the same thing on the other end. So I'm going to flip this around, same deal. 2 panels showing, stick it down and burnish it like crazy. And then again, back the other way and burnish. Okay, and that gives me my nice square boxes. Everything's nice and even, nothing wonky. Okay, all right, so that's our foundation. Now we're going to decorate. So I have here another piece of the Boho Vibes DSP. This is 3 by 4 inches. And then a piece of Daffodil Delight cardstock that is 3 1/8 by 4 1/8. So those are going to layer. So a little bit of glue. And we'll pop this on. And then that is going to nestle in that large panel in the background. So we're going to tuck that in here. And I'm going to try to look down without getting my head in the way of the camera, which is always a bit of a challenge. There we go. Okay. And then for the sides, we have more strips of DSP. So these are 1/2 inch by 4. There's 2 of them. And then the Daffodil Delight is 5/8 of an inch by 4 1/8. Okay. Again, all of these measurements are in the video description, so you don't need to try and write things down as I'm demonstrating. It's all there if you decide you want to try to recreate this. And if you do, I hope you share it with me. I love seeing what people create. And we'll add another one. Okay. Now these are going to get layered onto our 2 pillars here. Now the easiest way to get these on and make sure that they kind of line up with that background panel is to squish the pillar flat. We're going to add a bit of glue. And then I'm going to lay this on, and because it's overlapping that center panel, I can really line up my top and bottom edges to make sure everything's nice and even. There's one. I'm going to flip it around, do the same thing on the other side. So squish it flat and line it all up. There we go. All right. You like that so far? Okay, let's build another rainbow. So again, I have my blank cut from white cardstock, and this time all of my elements are cut from various colors. So this one, the largest one, is Daffodil Delight. So again, I've got my adhesive sheets on the back. I learned my lesson. A very sticky, painful lesson. We're going to stick with adhesive sheets from here on out for this. So we're going to pop this one on. Just like that. Look at that. I didn't end up with any bits in that one. Next, we have our little vines. These ones are cut from, oh, that one doesn't have, oh, I'm going to have to use a little bit of liquid glue on this guy, because I ran out of adhesive sheet real estate, apparently. So I'm going to add just a couple little dabs of glue there. And we'll add our vines. So there's one. And, oh, this one's all adhesive sheet. Good. No liquid glue required. There we go. And then we've got our petal pink arch. I don't know what it is that makes me love this color palette so much, but it just makes me so happy. And then we've got Cajun Craze Rick Rack. And finally, a little secret seed. This one looks like a horseshoe to me. I grew up around horses, so this just looks like a secret seed horseshoe. Complete with the holes for the nails to go through. There we go. Isn't that cute? I just love that patchwork. So fun. All right, now we're going to decorate this a little bit more. So I have my rainbow. I have my little sun. So this, I'm going to show you the stamps. So we have this sort of half moon, I guess, or semicircle, and then the light rays. So I stamped the semicircle once and then the light rays twice to create my sun. And then I fussy cut them out. Okay. So we're going to go ahead and adhere our sun and some clouds. So these clouds are actually from the Sunrise Sailing bundle that I featured last week. I love these little clouds. They work quite nicely with this particular suite. So I grabbed a couple of them. So these are cloud cover cardstock that I've embossed using the So Swirly embossing folder. So I'm going to add one little cloud sort of to the back of my rainbow here, and then a little bit more teal, and then we're going to add our sun, kind of peeking out. Okay, and then on the front, we're going to add our thanks. It's going to kind of come across the bottom, and then we're going to add another cloud this way. The reason for that is we need something to secure our rainbow to the pillars. It's not quite wide enough. If I stand this up, it's not quite wide enough. Well, I guess I could have gotten away with it. There's not a lot of real estate to put glue there. Okay, so by adding these extra elements, we've given ourselves enough width that we can secure our rainbow to our card a little bit more comfortably, shall we say. All right, so I've added my thanks. My thanks is heat embossed in white on Secret Sea cardstock. And then I'm going to add my cloud. Just like that. And then this is going to get glued onto our card base. Okay, now I really like having my rainbow centered. Okay, on this one, I didn't do a good job of centering it. You see how it's more off to the right? I'm going to try really hard to get this centered this time. So I'm going to add some glue here where it overlaps the pillar, here, and on my cloud. So a little bit of liquid glue there, there, and there. That's all we need. Okay, I'm going to squish this flat. I'm going to secure my piece onto the front of my card, and then stand it back up and make sure that all is well. That one doesn't want to stay stuck. I moved it too soon. Let's just give that a second to set up. There we go. You like that? Isn't that cute? All right, I decided this was too dark, so I took some more clouds, and this time I embossed it using the soft waves. So I switched up the embossing folders, but I wanted to lighten up those clouds because they are a little bit dark. I didn't want this to be a gloomy card. So I'm going to add a little bit of glue here, and I'm just going to offset them a little bit. So there's one and one up top. Just like that. Okay. And then we're going to add a little pink heart. Tell me I remembered to cut the pink heart. I could have sworn I did. Where did I put it? Is it on the floor? Is it in the bag? Oh, I don't know what I did with it. Shoot. Okay. Well, imagine there's a little pink heart here with another one of our little elements. So it's going to get added right to the edge of the cloud there. This white piece is for the back. So we need a place to write our greeting. So on the back, this piece is 4.5 by 4. Okay. And we are going to stamp our little sun in the upper corner. So let's grab our little semicircle here. I'm stamping in Daffodil Delight. And add our light rays. And there we go. Isn't that cute? Now, I didn't cut an extra strip of the DSP either. Clearly, I was not thinking clearly when I prepped all of my pieces for this one. So we'll just glue this on as is. I can always add the DSP later. I don't know what I did with my little heart. I distinctly remember cutting it. I just don't know where I put it. All right. We'll pop this on. Just like that. Yes, it definitely needs that extra little strip of DSP to make that pop. But there you go. There's your finished card. Isn't that cute? It's not a hard fun fold at all. And you can do all kinds of things with this fold. There are so many possibilities. But all right, let me bring in our other projects, and then I'll show you a few more that I did with this suite. All right, so here's one where I use that peek through. So if you recall, when I was showing you the dies, this one here cuts a peek through window. If you use this with this, it'll cut off a whole frame. Okay, but this one cuts a little peek through. So that's just two different patterns of DSP. Here's one where I actually cut some of that rainbow DSP to create a rainbow and then stamped a little sun peeking out behind it. The sunshine actually comes from the Everyday Arches stamp set. And then here's one where I cut that frame. So I cut my peek through and then I used the blank. So I paired those together like that. So you can cut it all in one pass. And then you cut it several times again to get the different colors from my rainbow. And then this is the one I posted earlier this morning. I just love this sort of patchwork effect of this one. So there you go. Lots of ideas with the Boho Vibes stamp set. Yeah, isn't it great with Daffodil Delight? I really, really, really love it. All right, let me just see if there's any other questions. Hi, Kenzie from Alberta. Sorry, I missed you popping in. All right, no other questions, I don't think. All right, let me come back to here. I need to tell you about some things that are coming up. So tomorrow, July 23rd through 25th, Stampin' Up! Is offering free shipping on orders of $100 or more here in Canada. Now, if you are not in Canada, if you're in the US or Europe, check what the minimum spend is to earn your free shipping. But free shipping starting tomorrow, flash sale for 3 days. So get those items, get this one. It's in stock. Grab it off your wish list and it will ship for free. That's number one. Number two, we are about a week out from registration closing for my weekend retreat coming up this fall. It's called Fall La La. It's happening the end of October, and it's in beautiful Rockwood, Ontario. So if you are in Southern Ontario and you would like to come and stamp with me or craft with me, it doesn't have to be stamping, you can do any crafting, for a weekend in October, please check it out. You can find all the details at the link that is in the video description. Okay? Thanks, everyone. Have a great week, and I will see you next week for another episode of Tuesday Live at 5. Bye for now.